Welcome to Modular Nerds. I am Mimir,
And I'm Lennex.
and today we're going to be talking about Assassin's Creed.
Hell yeah.
Love the Assassin's Creed franchise. The new game should be coming out later this year, I believe.
You would know better than me. I've actually been tuned out of Assassin's Creed for a little while now. I sort of lost the thread, as it were. Um, Talking about Assassin's Creed, I've been into it for a long time. I got excited for each release, a little bit less so over time, unfortunately, as the story unfortunately degraded a little bit and a lot of the gameplay just seemed to repeat. I played up through Revelations, and a little while back I got back into it with Odyssey. I love Black Flag, of course, for reasons we'll get into later.
Yeah, I mean, Black Flag wasn't one of my favorites. I know that's like everybody's favorite. I'd have to say probably 3 though would be my favorite.
That's an interesting choice. Why was 3 your favorite?
Um, I think when I started seeing things come out about it, the whole idea of running around in the trees and everything and hunting the animals, I think that really like piqued my interest on it. Like it looked so cool, and I don't know, his hidden blade, like I kind of like that one a lot better. It shoots out and then can flip sideways, and becomes like a dagger.
Ah, okay.
I liked that one a lot. So I don't know, his style and everything too just seemed really cool.
I liked I liked a lot of the styles of it too. There was a lot of things about 3 that I liked. I felt in some ways though it did fall kind of short. I felt like the wilderness section seemed a little bit empty sometimes. Um, there were other parts of 3 that I felt were a little bit disappointing. The story I felt didn't intersect enough with the American Revolution. I was like, there's other parts of this that they could have gotten into that would have been super interesting, but they didn't touch on. I felt it was a little bit of a missed opportunity.
I think there's quite a bit with like side mission stuff. You know, you're doing a bunch with like the Freemasons and everything, and there was a lot of stuff with that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the big battle and everything, like cinematic trailer that they had, like I really liked that, where he's like shooting across the battlefield and everything, taking people out, and then he like jumps over the line and then takes out their general or whatever, and
Dodging volleys and everything from musket fire. That was pretty cool. Actually, I really liked that trailer too. Um, the One of the things I thought was also really good about it was that it did introduce the ship gameplay, which again everybody liked. That's why Black Flag was Black Flag.
Yeah, I think that was I think that was my least favorite part of 3,
Really?
which I think is also why I wasn't like a huge fan of Black Flag. I mean, I liked uh what's his name? It's
Anyway.
Yes, I was going to say Henway, and I'm like, no, that's not right. It's Hatham, right? Hatham is the dad.
Hatham's the dad in 3.
Yes.
And then his dad was Kenway.
Yes. What was his first name? Do you remember?
It's been a minute.
Like Hector or something? I don't remember.
I don't know. Some English name probably.
But yeah, he was a cool character. I liked him. I liked how he kind of like found his way to the assassins. But I do think that the whole sailing and everything wasn't really my cup of tea. You know, no pun intended, with, you know, like the whole British and everything, but but yeah, like I think just the sailing and the piracy and everything wasn't like huge for me. I wanted more of the assassin feel. If it was a pirate game by itself, like I probably would have loved it. But wrapped up with Assassin's Creed, I was like, okay, well, this doesn't really feel like Assassin's Creed to me. This feels like a pirate game.
It didn't. Yeah, it did diverge a lot from the gameplay. I thought it was okay personally because and it was Kenway was the guy who played as in Black Flag. So the part of it that I thought was okay was that it's like, well, not every member is going to fight and act the same way, especially when they're from different parts of the world with differing ideas.
Well, yeah.
Kenway was kind of a rogue. He was kind of an independent kind of guy, like doing his own thing. He was already a pirate, more or less, when we see him. Like he gets shipwrecked and then he intercepts that package to take it to the where it's supposed to go. He's running a scam. He's trying to see what more he can get out of it. He thinks that there's going to be some sort of wealth, some kind of scheme that he can sort of cash in on.
Yeah, and I know he, like I said, he kind of found the assassins, kind of fell into that because he was betrayed. But I get the whole idea of like, yeah, people are gonna fight differently, people are gonna act differently because they are different. They're all from different parts of the world and everything. Like the organization's huge. I wouldn't say huge as in like very popular or well known, but huge as in like it crosses the entire globe.
Yeah, it crosses cultures, peoples, time, and all that. Like it's the idealism. The idea has surpassed the people who originally held it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I mean, like I get that. I get that they're obviously gonna be different. But the way that I see it is like it didn't have like the same kind of like moral code as like the rest of the assassins, and you see that like as it continues later on throughout the games, and we'll talk about that more. But you can see it's kind of slowly slipping away from the whole idea of the assassins.
Right.
Like throughout the years and everything, like it slowly changes. And then like in the games and everything too, even when it goes back in time, with the games and everything, like with Origins and Odyssey and all that, like the whole assassins like ideals and everything are way different, and the way that they behave is like way different. And I will say I think Odyssey comes before Origins, I think, technically. I'd have to look at the timeline again. I think...
No, I think it comes after.
I...
Oh, wait, maybe it doesn't. You're right.
I want to say, I think with the timeline, I think technically Odyssey comes before Origins.
Yep, actually, you're right about that, because I remember Origins involves Cleopatra and Caesar and all those guys. So it's at about 0 BC or 0 AD, depending on how you want to look at it. So it's or about 40 something AD. Yeah. So yeah, Caesar around 40 something AD, if I remember my timeline correctly. So that means that this, and then you're dealing with ancient Greece, and Leonidas and all these other characters.
Yeah. So
I think Odyssey would have then had to have been.
Yeah, because in the storyline of Odyssey, you don't have the assassins. The assassins are created in Origins. That's why it's like Origin. But they have... Okay, so going into a little bit of the lore, there's this other quote-unquote race of beings that are like the precursors, which you meet in... which one do you meet them in? I can't remember exactly which one you meet them in, but they're basically like these gods, these like divine beings or whatever that came before.
You mean like Athena?
No. There's Juno, and then there's she's got some other name. Like the other lady's got some other name. It's not Athena. She's got like some other weird name, and then there's a guy too, and I can't remember all their names.
Name either. He only really came up around Revelations.
Yeah, so there's those three like beings that are contacting this bloodline, which is Desmond's bloodline, but it's not just Desmond's bloodline that is like this, because when you see, and I think it's Assassin's Creed 2, it kind of explains a little bit more, where there's or is it Brotherhood? I can't remember. But it talks about like Adam and Eve. Those are technically like more advanced special humans and who like break away and escape.
They were the first humans to escape the control of the apples, which were used to enslave humanity.
Yeah, and because their blood, they were immune. And there were others like them, but they were the ones that escaped. So that's kind of how we got like the creation story in Assassin's Creed is like Adam and Eve were the ones who escaped and left like this paradise, and
The technological paradise, built by the ones that came before and everything.
yeah, so it was basically like Adam and Eve leaving the garden, and the apple and everything. Yeah, so it kind of goes down that storyline. But it's so Desmond's family, and it splits off with different games, and I'll try and remember how they're connected in a minute here. But they all have that blood in them. So that's why, like, he's contacted and everything, and he's kind of like a mix with like all these different bloodlines that kind of like merged down to him.
There's some sort of like component about it also, like if I'm remembering this right from the story, where it's like we don't fully understand it and it's never fully explained, but like the precursors, like the three that we were just talking about, have this ability to sort of reach across time and space, and they seem to exist in this weird outside of space and time type deal, where we know that they're able to, like, well, because we see it first in Assassin's Creed 2, where Juno is like, Ezio goes into the cave, or into the chamber, and then Juno starts talking, and at one point she stops talking, it seems, at Ezio, and then you realize it's not a recording. She turns and talks directly to Desmond, mentions him by name.
Yeah. I if I'm remembering right, I think what happened was, like, when the big event was gonna happen, the big like ending of the world in the precursor's time, I believe there was something about uploading their conscience, their consciousness.
Yes.
And I think that's how they were like able to reach across time, because they were beings at one point, but now they're kind of like these ethereal beings.
They exist outside of like normal space and time.
Yeah,
from wherever they were uploaded to, like the sort of computer network or the relics or whatever, it doesn't. Yeah. They don't have to conform to the normal laws of nature as we understand it.
Yeah, it's that whole idea of like ancient technology, right? So yes. It to us, it could look like a big like stone pillar, but that to them is a computer that's way more advanced than anything we have, but to us it doesn't look like anything because our technology looks different from theirs and everything. So it's all weird like that.
Advanced technology being indistinguishable from magic, even from our perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, you see that in like, and I'll cross over to another series real quick, but you see that in games like Breath of the Wild, where you have like these big mechanical like beings or like robot type things or whatever, but they look like they're like metal and stone and things like that, and they can shoot lasers out of their eyes and everything, and it looks like ancient technology. Or like you have like this little stone thing, like tablet thing or whatever, that has all this information on it. And it's like, okay, so it's that whole ancient technology trope, I guess you could call it, maybe, I don't know. But
the relics of what was left behind, and that we're just we're playing with the leftover toys. Like we're playing with the precursors rubbish pile.
Yeah, and I just kind of meant like the aesthetic wise anyway.
Yeah, no, I know that too. Yeah. I mean, it's an idea that's been around for a long time. The idea it's like, oh, we're playing with the remnants of a civilization long gone or whatever.
Like, hey, who's to say maybe Stonehenge, you can go over and find a keypad on it somewhere.
Pretty sure there's no keypad.
You don't know.
Hey,
have you been there?
Not personally, but I will be the first to credit our ancient ancestors that they were a lot smarter than a lot of us are willing to give them credit for.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those ancient relic sites, like Sutton Hoo and Deerhenge and stuff like that. For anybody who's unfamiliar, these are other relic sites that exist throughout the British Isles and in Scotland mostly. They have very advanced building principles involved in their construction, to the point where once we discovered them, for a long time, a lot of people were like, this has to be an accident, like just an amazing coincidence, because there's no way an ancient people would have been able to discover this kind of thing. But no, they had time. they built some incredible stuff. Like the way that the sun and the moon will interact with certain constructions and the way light will play with them. It's really incredible. And different stone structures that we thought were just leftover bits of destroyed stuff, but they still technically function today as they were meant to back in those days.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
So going back to like the precursors, and I know we use precursors in another series and everything too. It's just those who came before. I think they're actually called precursors
it's a catch-all term.
Yeah. But back to them, they had like this whole calamity that was gonna happen with the big solar flare and everything that was gonna basically wipe out their life.
Mm-hmm.
And then people survived. They went underground and everything and ended up surviving and starting a whole new world. It starts off with all these different bloodlines of these, what do I want to call them? Just advanced humans, I guess we'll call them for now, because I don't know if there is an actual term. I think there is, but I don't remember it. So the advanced humans kind of lead the people, and what happens is they're seen as like heroes in a lot of stories and everything. So like going back to Odyssey, you have Alexios or Cassandra. The gameplay I watched, because I'll be honest, I didn't finish playing Syndicate. That's where I stopped. It was like 3/4 of the way through Syndicate, and I stopped playing. But I went back through and I watched all the gameplay for the rest of that, through all the rest of them except for Valhalla. I have not played that one yet, and I have not watched anything yet on that. So we're going to avoid that one for now.
I don't know too much about it either, but I had to resist the urge to spoiling the one or two things I did know about it to mess with Mimir here.
Yeah, so we're going to steer clear of Valhalla. And Mirage is supposed to be coming out later this year, so we don't know anything about that one yet. So if this is after that you're watching it, that's why it's not mentioned. It hasn't been released yet.
I also will point out that I didn't finish. I sort of dropped it and haven't picked it back up again. I haven't finished Odyssey. Although I did get pretty far into it, and it's an enjoyable game. I liked a lot of the aspects of it. I also ended up buying the cosmetic pack. By the way, Cassandra, clearly the better character.
The way I seen the gameplay, it made a lot of sense, and I think the developers even wanted you to play as Alexios, but gave you the option to play as Cassandra, because everything that I read and seen, everyone said that the story makes more sense as playing as Alexios. That the story actually kind of it's relatively the same, but it kind of the dynamic of the story kind of shifts more in favor of Alexios. Everything that I've read, like people who have played both, they've said like it definitely feels a better story as playing Alexios. The story makes more sense, and I think it shifts a little bit in favor of playing Alexios.
It's been long enough, and I've actually heard that backed up by different people who have talked about the game, that if I did pick up the game again, I would probably restart it and I would play as Alexios. But on the other hand, I will just say, 6-foot-tall Greek warrior woman.
Well, I mean, yeah, she's pretty badass, but she also, and I don't know, do you not want me to spoil anything, like, for Odyssey?
I more or less know how the game ends at this point, so you might, like, at this point,
okay.
I'm so far removed from it that I've heard enough about it just in passing that I'm like, oh, that's how the game ended, where it's just, like, it didn't mean much at the time, I didn't know enough to stop myself from hearing it, so.
Okay, so then I'll talk about it.
Yeah, go for it, it's fine.
So, the way that Cassandra kind of has, I don't want to call it a breakdown, but she kind of has like a breakdown towards the end of the game and everything, where she's fighting between still wanting to hate Alexios or like wanting to forgive him for the whole childhood thing,
Mm-hmm.
because she blames him because that's how she was raised. She was raised to blame him through like the order and everything.
Yep.
So the way that it feels to make sense for her, like she was raised so young, she doesn't know any better than to hate him, and now he's been there for her and tried to help save her, and she's conflicted. That feels to me like a better relationship. I don't know how it plays out. I don't know if maybe Alexios is like the younger brother. I guess you'd have to tell me. Like, did Cassandra push the priest and Alexios fell as a baby? Was she older? Or was it the other way around still? Was she still the baby and he pushed the priest and she fell?
It's been a minute. I think it was her pushing him. Or
Okay. Because in the Alexios playthrough, he's older and they were going to kill Cassandra, like throw her off the cliff or whatever.
Right.
The priest was
Spartan harsh realities.
yeah, and he went and pushed the priest, and he fell and everything. And then I think Cassandra didn't fall, and then or maybe she did, or whatever. And then they pushed him off the cliff at the end, like the dad pushed him off the cliff or whatever. So he was the older one who did the pushing. The other Cassandra was a baby. So
I think it's reversed if you pick Cassandra as your main character.
Is it, or is it still the same?
It feels like that would be to keep the story the same. It would have been reversed. It's been so long, and I feel like an idiot talking about something that I'm not 100% sure about. But it feels like if whoever you pick as your character, that's the older sibling in that scenario.
Well, I thought about that, and the only way it makes sense to me, with kind of why people say like the story makes better sense playing Alexios, is if it kept the same story and you just grew up as Cassandra, and because if it was flipped, then it wouldn't matter. Then it wouldn't make a difference who you picked. Which might be the case. I don't know. I don't know for sure. Like I said, I only watched the one playthrough of Alexios, so I don't know. And without playing it ever, like I don't know how it plays out.
I just had the incomplete. Yeah, it's like we're real sources of authority on this topic, folks. I had the one incomplete playthrough playing as Cassandra, and a lot of that was more focused on gameplay for me. I just enjoyed the gameplay a lot of time. I did enjoy the fact that I had choices that had consequences. The first big one that you come across, which seems inconsequential, and this was fairly topical because when I was playing it, COVID was the thing. When there's a family that ran from a plague town, and you meet some like law enforcement on the road that's like, we have to kill them for trying to run away, or they have to go back. And then the guy's like, we're not sick, and you have the option of either killing the family or forcing them back, or I think it's you have to kill them, or you go ahead and you kill the guards, and then you tell the family, go, get out of here, be safe, I believe you're not sick. But it turns out they actually were sick, and they end up spreading the plague from the town to the rest of the island. And later on, when you come back to your home island, everybody you left behind is dead. Like, the island is dead.
Yeah, I do remember in the playthrough that I watched, you go back to the island and everything, and everyone's sick and or dead. But again, like I didn't play that one. I only watched it. If we go back through like the other ones, the earlier ones, I know more about those ones. But so again, and I don't know when Valhalla takes place. I don't know when Mirage takes place. I'd have to look more into those.
Valhalla seems like it'd be fairly self-contained compared to some of the other ones, just because you're dealing with, if I'm remembering correctly, you're dealing with the Viking invasion of the northern parts of England, which I think would have happened in No, you know what? No, I'm not 100% certain of it, so I'm not going to date myself on this. But it's, I mean, the story is fairly self-contained. I mean, you're further north than you have been previously.
Well, I it's not so much because a bunch of them take place all over the world,
Yes.
right? So it's not so much of that. I would have to say when. The problem would be is when does it take place? Because the point that I was getting was trying to figure out which one was like the so far the start, the beginning, because in number 1 is during the time of the Crusade. So that's not as early as like Odyssey. Odyssey had to have taken place first. That's ancient Greece.
Yeah. I just double checked the time. So the Viking invade. It was during the late 9th century. That is when Valhalla takes place. It's when the Vikings were expanding, and they settled in like Anglo-Saxon territories in England and shit like that. And I remember, and I think Odyssey took place. I think a couple hundred years BC. It's definitely a few centuries BC at least. So it's by far the oldest one. And Origins takes place a little bit after the calendar reset, so that's probably in the 1st century. So that'd be the first, yeah, because Caesar is alive in that game.
Yeah.
And so is Cleopatra, which means that, yeah, it would have taken place within the 1st century, like that whole game.
Yeah. So which also, again, without knowing anything of the storyline of Valhalla, it makes the most sense to that. The order, the Assassin's Order, or the group, or whatever you want to call them at this point, they haven't been established yet. They are these advanced humans, and Alexios is part of that bloodline, which also was like Leonidas and everything. All of those bloodline, or all of that bloodline or whatever, are considered like the advanced humans, but since they're so much more advanced than the regular people around them, that's why they're considered like heroes in like tales and everything.
Right. The thing that I got from that, and because I think someone once did a good job explaining to me, it's that the humans who like end up becoming assassins are the ones who have like special gifts or like are especially talented. It's because they have more of a percentage of that advanced ancient precursor race in them. Like their DNA has more precursor traces in it than it does for other people, and that leads to interesting effects.
Well, that's
things like eagle vision.
Well, yeah, that is where it comes from. That's the advanced human bloodline,
Yes.
The Adam and Eve bloodline that started it.
And
that's
also intermixing with the precursor race.
Well, no, I think that was just those were the humans from that time. Is they were more advanced in that way, and since they weren't controlled, they were able to break free from it and everything. Because there were different types. There's like we'll call them the low tier humans, which were the ones that could be controlled by like the apple and the staff and all that. Those ones were the ones that were being controlled, and the ones that were like the advanced humans were like Adam and Eve's bloodline that broke free from the precursors. And then a step above like the advanced humans were the precursors. So since the advanced humans could break free from that, and they broke free, started, and that's the bloodline that continues with all of the ones with the abilities, like the eagle vision and everything like that. They're the advanced humans, and then you have other humans that can kind of join like the creed and everything and be a part of it, but maybe don't have the skills like that. They just have to build their skills. They're not as skillful as like, you know, your main characters and your heroes like that.
Yeah, they may not be as gifted, but they're still people committed to your ideals and following your cause and stuff. Although, ideally, I think that they're meant to, like, the better ones are the ones who all unlock that part of their DNA. If they have enough of it in them, like, they unlock that part of their DNA that lets them use special assassin abilities like Eagle Vision, because it's a huge advantage for, like, an assassin to be able to do that.
Yeah, but I don't think that's something that they can just unlock. I think that is a specific trait in the DNA of specific bloodlines.
Well, no, because then in the very first game, Desmond, he remember after he spends enough time in the Animus, he unlocks it.
Yeah, but that's not because he unlocked it. That was already. It's not something that can be learned by anybody, is what I'm saying.
No, you don't learn it.
That is something that's already in his DNA. It's already in his bloodline and everything. He just didn't know how to do it,
right?
Because he was never a part of like an assassin's group like that to learn the skills and hone in on his skills. That was always a part of his DNA. But when he got thrown into the Animus and started running around as Altair, and Altair could use these abilities, the bleeding effect from the Animus started giving him Altair's skills through like the ancestral memories and the bloodline and everything. But it wasn't something that's, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is like, it's not something that anybody can be like, oh, well, I went into this new Animus that they have in the newer games and everything, where I can just dive into someone else's like bloodline's memories, because you see that with, what is it, 3 or 4 or whatever, where you're like that intern or whatever.
Black Flag was the one, where you play the intern at EA games, Electronic Arts games.
Yeah. So you go, you go in and they have you sifting through these memories when you're not part of that bloodline. So it's not something that like anybody can just jump in and be like, oh, well, I'm getting the bleeding effect, so now I have these skills, now I can use Eagle Vision. It's not like that. It's encoded in their DNA, from what I believe. Because, again, back to Alexios, he had the ability to, I can't remember the name of his eagle, but like the legend or the story or whatever was that it was Zeus, or it was a gift from Zeus or whatever, a blessing from Zeus.
Right.
And that's like what he told people or whatever, to kind of make himself cooler. He was like, I'm really good, I'm really skilled, and this is a blessing from Zeus.
Yeah. Like I'm favored by the gods, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because and you can even go around telling people that you are a god. There's options in that saying that you are a god and everything. So, and I think that's kind of where it comes from, is like, because he possesses that DNA in him, but he doesn't know anything about this. He just knows that he has these abilities. So he's saying that, it comes from the gods, because that's what they believe in at that point.
Right. It's easy. Time and place and all that too.
Yeah.
It's like, these are the ancient Greeks, and for all their advancements, when this kind of crazy thing comes along, their straightforward explanation for it is basically going to be like, oh, well, it must be a gift from the gods. That's all it is.
Yeah, and then we fast forward, move to Origins, and you have
I cannot remember that character's name. Something very Egyptian, and I know he's a magi.
Yes, that's the only thing, because most of the time they don't use his name. They just call him Magi.
Yes.
Because that's his title.
Yes.
So that's just what I'm going to call him. Which is actually kind of funny. All of the characters in Assassin's Creed, they're all a translation of eagle or bird or something like that, bird of prey.
Yep. Altair, Ezio,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, like I'm sure
it's like an Easter egg. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it has something to do with like bird of prey or whatever in like Egyptian. So he ends up having like these abilities and everything too, and ends up seeing his son die. Well, actually, I think he ends up accidentally killing his own son.
No, his son's killed by like a cult.
No, I think the cult controlled him, and he accidentally killed his own son. If I remember right.
I played on the PlayStation. It's been a minute since
I think he was forced to kill his own son through like a hypnosis type deal.
We gotta make sure we do more research the next time we dive into this.
Well,
we start saying we're using I think a lot.
When I watched the Origins playthrough, I want to say that was like a year and a half maybe ago, and I thought I was pretty strong on some of the things that I knew, but then now I'm getting into like smaller detail stuff of it after I just looked up a bunch of stuff on like older episodes, or like not episodes, older games and everything to make sure I got like certain things correct. I lost some of that knowledge that I just recently had of that. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that the cult kind of like tricked him, like made him see something else or whatever, and he killed his own son.
Okay, that sounds like it might be more correct, but it's the cult's fault is what I'm getting.
Yes. It wasn't, like random or an accident or whatever.
Because he goes on like a revenge. Like the whole point of the story is that he's out for revenge for his son.
Yes. But I think he died at his own hand. Like I think he killed his son by his own hand. Is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Not on purpose. And then he goes on like this whole revenge kick, vengeance. He is the knight. No. So
a lot of times he is.
Yeah. So he goes on this little journey, with his wife, and
Is it his wife or his girlfriend? Just a girl that he knows.
Well, I don't know. It's the mother of his child.
Okay.
I don't know if they're married.
Okay.
I do know though that that's the mother and father.
Okay. I'm not sure if she was like the mother of the dead son or not.
Yes.
Okay, she was. All
yes. Right. But I don't know, if they were ever officially married or whatever.
Also marriage is different in those days.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's been a minute since I played that game either. And I wasn't as big on like I was more on just like up for the gameplay. Like, I didn't pay as close attention to some of the newer games, and even newer. We're talking about games that are already like a decade old.
Yeah. Oh, I remember when I was like fucking God, I want to say I was 13. No, younger than that. When I was playing Assassin's Creed 1 at my buddy's house.
Yeah, same here. I was also very young, and I
like
remember playing it. I was amazed by the fact you could climb all the walls and everything.
Yeah.
And you could blend into crowds, and the map was so big, and it was incredible. It's like, product of its time and all that. And back in those days, that game really was thoroughly impressive with what you could accomplish. Of course, the technology became more commonplace, and, we got more used to the idea of climbing walls in video games and big open world maps and stuff like that. By the time we reached Brotherhood, I think I was very laid back about the whole thing, where I was just like, oh, look, it's Rome. Cool. New environment. Let's go.
Yeah. So anyway, he goes on this whole revenge plot, and him and his I'm just gonna say it's his wife, even if they're not married.
Sure, his wife. Close enough.
Yeah. So him and his wife actually end up not seeing eye to eye on what they should do next, type of thing. And I believe one of them forms the Brotherhood. I think it's him. I think he forms the Creed. Yeah, if I'm remembering right, like
that's much later in the game, if I remember right, because
that's like towards the end.
Yeah, because because you spend the game because it actually does deal with like the origins of the Assassin's Brotherhood, where how its ideas evolve, because you meet like Cleopatra and Caesar's character, and I can't remember the other one. I think it's like Pompey or whatever, like Cleopatra's brother, and you do all this stuff to put Cleopatra in a position of power, and basically you're helping history move behind the scenes and stuff like that.
I mean, that's with all the Assassin's Creed games.
Right.
It's like all of them take place as like a major event in history.
And you have a surprising hand in making these events happen. It sort of leads into the idea of you never know how small an action it takes to create a huge event or something like that. But I remember if I'm remembering correctly here, so in Origins, yeah, you get Cleopatra in power, and she partners up with Caesar and all that, and then it's sort of like something else happens, and you realize, or the Magi realizes, oh, they're untouchable now.
Well, yeah,
we can't reach them.
They betrayed you.
They stabbed you in the back.
I believe they were also working with the Order, but Cleopatra was betrayed by her brother, also her husband, same guy.
Ancient Egypt, man.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
So, but I believe that's what it was. Is Cleopatra and Caesar, they fuck you over, and then you. I think you just wanna to move on, and your wife doesn't. I think she wants to continue to like fight, and that causes you to form the Creed, and like kind of create like the assassins.
Right. If I remember correctly, no, he's on board with it too, because he creates this thing where he talks about how someone has to fight for the people. It's very
but
civic minded in how he does it.
Yeah, it goes away from the simple revenge plot into someone needs to be there for the people, and I think the wife was like, revenge. You know, we need to root out all corruption. And he's like, well, we need to do this the smart way, and she's like, no, blah blah blah, fuck that. Like, let's just destroy the corruption, and he takes the more like, let's think things through, do this the right way, and forms the assassins.
Right. It's not like official. I think because they're called, I think, like the hidden ones.
Yeah, something like that.
But it's like, concepts and ideas evolve over time. Like assassin itself, the word didn't develop until actually around Altair's time out. So that's why that makes Assassin's Creed makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Because the sect of assassins that they belong to are actually the originators of the term assassins, or hashashin, or something like that, some Middle Eastern word.
There, I believe there were like the hidden ones in Odyssey. In one of the DLCs, you meet up with this guy and his daughter, and he's like an assassin. He's got the full hood and everything. He's sneaking around, kind of trying to take out corruption.
One of the precursors of the Order. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it definitely wasn't like a thing at that point. Like it was. Yes. There were the hidden ones, and then came like the Creed later on, where it was like they became an organization, and then after Origins, the next one I believe would be just Assassin's Creed with Altair, right?
Until the new game comes out.
Well, yeah, because I don't know, all that, but.
Yeah, barring the other games that we did not play, I believe, the next, at least very least story-wise, the next major one is Assassin's Creed, the first game with Altair.
Yeah, and Altair is pretty cocky. He gets demoted on that very first mission you play.
Because he's a master assassin, but he acts like a complete asshole, and like he disregards the tenets of the Creed, kills an innocent man, and charges ahead without his backup, and basically the whole mission falls apart because Altair decided to act like a dick and be like, well, I was better than everybody else. Why shouldn't I rush ahead and, fuck everything up? Yeah,
so he has to go through his old journey to learn to be an assassin again, and what it is to be an assassin. And as you're going through, you're trying to take out like all this corruption and everything with the Templars. And that's when we get introduced more into, because the masked like cult leaders. I can't remember what their name was, like their group, but it eventually evolves into like the Templars. The Templars are the ones who want to maintain control of. I mean, the entire time throughout history, this group that eventually becomes the Templars wants to maintain control over the people.
The path forward to humanity is control. That freedom is, like it's an illusion, yada yada, and all that stuff. But the idea of freedom versus control, the assassins fall on the side of freedom, the Templars fall on the side of control, and that's where the whole ideological clashing comes from.
Yeah, they all relatively. There are some in there who are in it for self-interest. But they all basically want peace, but they want it their way.
Yes.
The Templars want to have peace by being in control of everything. The assassins want peace by giving power to the people and letting them decide, like, what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, the fact is that, though, that the way that the assassins have played it is that a lot of times they've been, like, the way that they're portrayed is that they've been right in their ideals, where it's like granting freedom to people has been the actual cure for a lot of problems, not the bane of them. But the Templars are adamant that they're, like, the lack of control is what leads to problems in the first place.
Which I believe, and again, I didn't play Rogue, but I believe has a little bit to play in Rogue. Because I think you get betrayed in Rogue by the, what the fuck's he called? He's like the prophet guy. I can't remember who he is.
Didn't play Rogue. I have no idea what you're talking about.
He's in 4. He's the one sightseer prophet guy. I can't remember his name.
You mean Black Flag?
Yeah, he's in Black Flag. He's I think he's like that Spanish guy. I can't remember if that is his ethnicity, but yeah, he is essentially a prophet. He can see and speak to, like, Juno and them. Like, he sees past that. And he's portrayed as like this prophet. Or maybe prophet's the wrong word. But like shaman type dude or whatever. I think he might be called the shaman or something. I don't remember.
A seer of some kind, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, like he I think an earlier carnation of him betrays you in Rogue, and then you're reborn. Yeah, because that would kind of line up. You're reborn and then grow up in, like, Black Flag, or not you. He does. He's reborn. He grows up in Black Flag.
So he's like reincarnated.
Yes.
As a
Well, he is also a seer in Rogue, from what I read.
I totally missed out on this connection.
Yeah, he's because when you're playing as, like, the intern guy or whatever, there's that one voice or something that's, like, guiding you to unlock something or whatever, and he's basically mad. Like,
okay.
he's that crazy guy who, like, has you unlock something.
Okay.
In like the real world part.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's in both of them. And again, like I said, I didn't play Rogue, but from what I gathered from it, you ended up getting betrayed by him or whatever, and then betrayed by, like, the assassins or something like that. So you move over to the side of the Templars, which then causes you to... Okay, so hold on. Hatham is the son of
Kenway.
the blonde Kenway.
Yes.
Okay. And then Connor's the son of Hatham. I'm just trying to remember the timeline part in my head here.
Okay.
So
You're good.
I think I think you end up becoming a not pirate, but like so something in Rogue. I'm totally screwing this up. That leads you to have like a piracy life for Kenway. Something happens because I believe you're Kenway's father in that one. Actually, no. Are you? You're an Irishman. I can't remember. I think he's Kenway's father. Or yeah, I think he's Kenway's father. And then Kenway ends up having Hatham. Hatham ends up having Connor. And that's one bloodline.
Okay.
So
the one part of the bloodline.
No,
yeah.
that is one bloodline.
Okay.
And then there's the second bloodline, which comes from, I believe, Altair and Ezio. I don't know how Alexios and the Magi fall into that. I don't know if they even are part of that bloodline, like any of those bloodlines. I'd have to look again at the chart. But there's two bloodlines that come together, which is Desmond's father's bloodline.
Right.
And I believe he is the Kenway bloodline. And then there's Desmond's mother's bloodline, which I believe is the Ezio and Altair bloodline. So that's how those are connected.
Okay.
So those two bloodlines come together at that point in Desmond.
Okay. Which explains how he's able to cross over enough to see a bunch of this stuff.
Well, because he only goes through... Well... Does he go into Connor's bloodline? Or is that...
Assassin's Creed 3 is... Wouldn't it be? Folks, this is what happens when you don't do thorough research. A lot of this stuff that we started off hot today, and I know a lot of this is very off the cuff. That's because it is. We just started recording and then just dived right into the conversation.
Well,
so we were hot blooded when we came into it.
Well, I'm trying to remember because the bloodlines are a little bit confusing to me. One of the bloodlines, I believe, doesn't ever touch Desmond. Like he doesn't go into the Animus to go into his father's side. I think Desmond... A little bit of spoiler here. Desmond dies.
He does?
I believe he dies before 3.
He dies in
Doesn't he?
Revelations.
Yeah. So he never touches his father's bloodline in the Animus. Because
correct.
Yeah, you only got 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations.
Wait, so who was your protagonist in 3? Or was there a real world protagonist at all in that one?
There was. Was that the one where you're the intern?
No, where you're the video game intern is Black Flag. Unless, wait, no. Black Flag was 4, so that means 3 came first.
Yeah, I think you start that whole ordeal in 3, which I believe has the that seer in it in 3, not 4.
Okay, yeah, no, 3 I think might just be a game from Connor's perspective. I'm not sure if there's like a real world thing. I think it's just Connor experiencing this crazy shit.
Well, yeah, I think what they did is they had you... I don't know if you even ever got to walk around in like that office. I think that might have been 4 where you walked around in the office.
It was.
But I think before that is they talked about that's when Abstergo like basically put out like an Apple show where they're like, come experience your ancestors, memories. And
right.
And it was the whole like like, oh, come here to, and I think that was them trying to find bloodlines,
Right.
find someone who connected with the certain bloodlines until they were able to access other people's bloodlines like they could later.
If I remember correctly, part of this was that they were also, at this point in the story, they were able to search for the DNA of like extinct bloodlines or DNA of individuals that they couldn't find descendants for.
Right.
They could find like the body, like the corpse or the remains, and they could take DNA from that and then overlay it on the animus.
Yeah, and that they would dive into that.
Which I think is actually, that would explain how it's still connected to Desmond, because it's like, because I remember they said the Templars got Desmond's body after Revelations.
Yeah, and that's when in 4 you're in the office and everything, and you're the intern or whatever, diving into that bloodline, which is the father's blood.
Right, which is still in the Connor and Kenway thing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But I believe in 3, I don't think there was ever any like real world stuff. I think it was all like,
right. It's all just from the Native American.
Yeah, but the only real world stuff was like Abstergo putting out like these commercials, right, basically. I believe.
Stuff, yeah, that's stuff that you unlock that you could view, but that was stuff for you. It's not for.
Yeah.
It's not that Connor's experiencing this Apple product in the future.
Well, yeah, no, I know.
Which would have been funny as shit. Being like, hey, not only did you lose, but this company took over the land of your ancestors.
Yeah.
That's man. Now that we're talking about it, not to make this seem like the tragedy of the Native American culture or anything like that, but imagine from his perspective if, because in his mind he actually is fighting for his tribe and like their rights and everything to keep them safe, and it's hard enough at the end where he realizes his tribe has left him and they left him behind. But then it's like a whole thing where it's like, show him the future where it's like, hey, yeah, it turns out that thing you were fighting for didn't amount to as much as you thought. You were helping somebody else's cause the whole time, and that's the cause that took off. Like, you were in the background helping the American Revolution, which you believed in, but it didn't turn out as well for you as you would expect. Which is kind of harsh to think about.
And I kind of want to back up a little bit. Again, back to like Odyssey and Origins.
There's all over the place today.
Yeah, there's that other girl in the real world. I can't remember her name.
Neither can I.
She is like a researcher.
Yep. And
she is discovering like the story behind these like other assassins, the beginnings. And they end up finding help me out here because you'll probably know better than me.
Okay.
Who's the Greek god that had the scepter? The medicine scepter with the snake.
Oh, that's
the winged snake.
That's the Caduceus. I believe that's Apollo.
No, it's
Apollo is god of healing as well.
Yeah, but I thought it was not Hephaestus. That's the smith.
Is the forge? He's the smith. Hermes is the messenger.
I want to say like Hippolyte, but that's not right. That's the soldiers.
No, there's. I mean, you could probably find like more minor figures involved with healing, but the Caduceus itself, I believe, was an Apollo thing.
Oh, the alarm's going. I didn't know it would make noise. Alrighty, well, I guess we'll come back to this.
In a minute, we're gonna take a quick break here before we record the next session.
Yeah, but for you guys, it'll probably be like 2 weeks before you hear more of this. So strap in. We'll be back.
Later, guys.